This is Stronger Than My Father with Marcus Menace.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. I am your host, Marcus Menace. Many may ask, why does this podcast exist? This podcast exists because I believe fatherhood matters, and that it's time to bring more awareness to fatherhood and to begin to break the cycle of fatherlessness. This show is powered by your donations, subscriptions, and if you enjoy what you're hearing, we love a 5-star rating. Please support us by going to StrongerThanMyFather.org for more information and how you can listen to other podcast episodes. Let's get into it. This episode I was really looking forward to. Me and this young man met a couple of weeks ago, and his story blew me out the water. And I says, man, we got to do a podcast. We got to talk about this issue, dealing with growing up without a father, but also the issues of growing out of father and being in the church. Yeah. So I hope I don't get crucified for this. So let me do some ideas, Mr. Craisean George. Did I get your name right?
Yeah.
Craisean George, thank you for being the guest on Strong My Father podcast. Let's get into it.
Yes, sir.
For some of my guests who don't know a little bit about you, I want you to give my audience a little bio about yourself, where you grew up as, and then we're going to talk about dad.
Okay, so my name is Craisean George. I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois, southside. Don't let no one tell you that the west side is better. I attended Gwendolyn Brooks College Preparatory Academy, located on the south side in the Roseland area. I grew up in church. My life, I was raised by a single mother. I'm my mother's only child, so I was raised as the only child, and I have 4 brothers on my father's side. I didn't meet them until like later on in life. I didn't meet my brothers until like high school. So, still getting a relationship going with them, but, raised in church, raised in the men's ministry, around the deacons. So I grew up around like 60 and 70-year-olds, so I adopted an old soul. So going around singing in the male chorus in various churches around the city, and just going about just picking up on their mannerisms, and it really helped me out. It gave me a solid foundation. I attended college at Fisk University in 2017. I recently just graduated this May with my bachelor's in business administration. I'm currently about to start a job as a business development coordinator for Baker Donaldson law firm, and I'm just living life, this new life in Nashville, Tennessee, just carving my path and building a legacy. So yeah.
Let me ask you this: growing up on the South Side, I've heard so many stories of the South Side of Chicago. That so many young men don't make it out. Due to the violence and everything. For my audience, can you just tell them, they see stuff on TV about Chicago, the violence and everything. Is that really true of how things go on in the South Side, and how do most people can survive in that area?
Honestly, truly, yeah, the violence on the South Side, and not even just the South Side, just in Chicago, period, in the poor neighborhoods is very, very true. I grew up on 76 in Ingleside. That's on the South Side, close to 79th in Cottage Grove. And I grew up across the street from Grand Crossing Park and Hearst High School. So growing across the street from Grand Crossing Park, I was surrounded by different gangs. My school was on 74th and Evans. That was like right down the street. There were many of times as an elementary school student walking home that I seen, gang meetings down the street, literally from my school. And there were times where like I'm walking towards home and my mother tells me, I need you to walk on the main street, because if you walk in these neighborhoods, you could get snatched up, you could get jumped. And thank God I wasn't jumped. But I remember I was a part of the park district across the street, and shout out to my coaches, Coach Kelly and Coach Raj. They were one of my mentors in sports at the time. And I remember one day I was walking across the street on my way home, and a car pulled up and was pointing a gun at a group of guys, literally on my way across the street from that house. Now, thank God they wasn't shooting, but it it was just situations like that happen. I remember every Father's Day, 2 particular Father's Day, when we first moved in that neighborhood, there were shootouts at the park across the street. At the park across the street, there were shootouts. And there's this narrative that some of the guys on the north end of 79th, they don't make it past 79th. There was a rivalry gang on 83rd in Cottage Grove, and they would beef with the guys past 79th. So there's a lot of guys who grew up in that neighborhood, who grew up in the Grand Crossing area, who don't make it out or who cannot make it past 79th. So there's only a few, literally only a few guys who could get out of that city and who could make it past that time. And it's so crazy because majority of the guys that I went to school with, either them are, some of them are either dead, some of them are, out of school, are in jail, have kids. But as I know, I'm like the only male from my elementary school to get my bachelor's degree.
That's deep. That's deep. Now, one thing that I didn't know when we talked a couple of weeks ago was, why would you be shooting every Father's Day? Wouldn't that be a time for dads to hug their kids? Or do you think just kids growing up without fathers and they just don't care?
To be honest with you, not just Father's Day, but I feel as if like when it gets hot, for some reason, when it gets hot in Chicago, even right now, if you look at the statistics, there have been numerous shootings. Mayor Lightfoot most definitely put a curfew on the city because it's just been wild these past few months since it's gotten hot. But I believe that literally father plays a very important role in the child's life. And we mentioned earlier, when a child is raised without a father, there's like a space that is open within their souls that whatever, if it's open, you got to fill it with something. And sometimes they fill it with gang violence. And when you're surrounded by gang violence and you have the OGs or you have your brothers or your uncles who are invested in that and they're your role models, then all you know and all you breathe and all you see is whatever gang that is, to be honest with you.
Let me ask you this. Now, your relationship with your father, we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Because you were 23? 23. All right, I got it right.
Yes, sir.
How did that play a role in your development of not having him around? How did that play a role in your development growing up as a man?
Honestly, truly, it affected me, but it affected me differently. So, I was raised in the church. And I was raised by the men in the church. There was 3 distinct men who I say raised me. All of them were deacons: Deacon Samuel Nicholson, Deacon Clem Boyd, who was my godfather, and Deacon Reuben Burton. Those 3 men were 3 pinnacles, 3 pillars in my life. So I didn't meet my dad till I was 7. I met him on the corner of 75th, right off of the Dan Ryan at Maxwell's Street Hot Dogs. And from them, I was in communication, but at a young age, it just like, I just remember one day, the typical, we're going to go somewhere and then I don't hear from him, but when I got older and I realized that like he was having surgeries and all these other stuff, my dad lived in Detroit at the time. So he lived in Detroit and I'm living in the city. And what's so crazy is I have a great relationship with my grandmother on my father's side. I have a great relationship with my grandmother on my father's side. My cousins on my father's side, all of us went to the same church. So, and people at the church knew who my dad was. So growing up, everybody knew who my dad was and know he wasn't there. So, I remember I was like around 11 or 12. And I was in communication with my dad. I knew he was sick, and I texted him. I was like, hey, I know that you're sick. I said, I want a relationship with you because I don't want it to get to the point where you are sick and you can't. We can't, have a bond. And I remember him finding that disrespectful. I remember him telling me,
that's crazy.
Yeah, at a young age, I remember him telling me to stay in the child's place and all of those things. So early on, it was kind of interesting because it was just like, like you shunning me out when I really just want to be cool with you. But growing up and when I got connected with my brothers, I realized that all of us have a different interaction with him. Every single one of us have a different interaction with him. And it got to the point where like, he didn't really come around. He moved back to Chicago, I want to say, back in 2016 when my grandfather got sick. He got sick and he went out quickly. And, you know, so he came back. And I respected him because he came back and took care of my grandmother, his mother. And he been there. So he started coming around the church and all of those things. But I guess, like, what really made me kind of have beef with him for real was that, like, growing up in the church, I'm singing, I'm doing all these things, I'm a junior deacon, I'm in the choir, I'm preaching, I'm all these things, but it seemed as if none of that got his attention and made him proud. Like, I remember there was a youth day where everybody was singing, you know, different people was walking on the floor and singing, and he smiling at them, he, you know what I'm saying, on his feet. But when I'm on the floor, you know, he got an attitude. You know, he looking mean and he's looking muggy. I remember this. I remember one Sunday, literally, I'm singing and I'm staring at him and he's shaking his head while I'm leading. He's shaking his head. No, for real. So dealing with that, and it's like, yo, and seeing that everybody likes him, everybody, you know, he was an armor bearer of the church, and my pastor got him under him, and it's just like, yo, like, y'all got this guy in this position, and y'all don't even know, like, me and him is not even cool, you know what I'm saying? So, but what really did it for me was when it was time for me to transition to college. I'm my mother's only child, so she was taking it very, very hard to have her only son go away 7 hours away from home to Tennessee. And originally, my uncle was supposed to take us to my registration, but he ended up getting sick. So I guess out of just, I don't know why, she asked my dad, and he agreed. He agreed. And we was nervous because I'm like, man, you could have just asked me and just my cousin. We just would have rolled down, rolled back. It would have been fine. But she asked my dad. He agreed. And this was like the first time they was in the same car. So that weekend was interesting because going down, it was all happy, all fun and giggles and all that other stuff. But over the course of the weekend, I saw something that changed in him. Like, I literally saw that, okay, cool. It's just not us. He really got some issues within himself. Like, on the way back, he wasn't speaking to us. He was literally speeding on the highway, trying to get us out of the car. Speeding on the highway, made it extremely obvious that he did not want us in that car. And it got to the point that when we pulled up to my grandmother's house, my mother looked at him and she was like, "What did we do to you?" And all he did was shake his head, get out the car, and go inside the house. So at that point, I'm like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Out of all this time, like, are you serious right now? Is this really how you feel? So I'm hurt because it's like, yo, like, you had no issue. Like, I see it for myself that you had no type of, you know what I'm saying? No type of reason why you act like this. So I texted him one day and I was like, yo, so like, what's to you? Like, why are you doing this? And he was just making excuses. Told us me and your mom was never together, you know, just disrespectful. Because I was close to my brother, one of my younger brothers, and he was like, you know, the only problems that I have is with you and your brother. I never had a problem with none of the rest of my kids. The apple don't fall from the tree. And it was just being mad disrespectful. So with that understanding, you know what I'm saying, it kind of made it difficult. My first year in college was a struggle because it made it difficult for me to have a relationship with my grandmother because, you know, she lived in the same house
with your dad,
with my dad. Yeah. So like coming home and seeing her was difficult because it's like, you know, we didn't speak. And there was one day I went over there and he had an issue that I didn't speak to him. He had a whole issue. I brought my cousins. They spoke. I ain't got nothing to say to you. You disrespected me. You disrespected my mother. I have nothing to say to you. This is my grandmother's house. I'm gonna speak to her. And he literally had an issue with that. And so what was so crazy? So I'm coming back home during my freshman year, and me and him not speaking. I'm talking about, I love my church. I love ministry. I love serving. So it's difficult trying to be in ministry and trying to, you know, let the Lord use me when I'm at odds with my father, when I do not like him. Like, even to the point where if I'm out of state and I'm looking at the live video, if I see him, I'm turning it off because I do not like him. And this was the time where I announced my calling to ministry. And when I got back home and it's getting closer to the time, like I'm saying, me and him not speaking, and usually when you're not married and you get your license as a minister, your parents are the ones that pray with you, while they do that. So I told my pastor, I had a meeting with him, like, look, I don't want him up there. I do not want him up there at all. Me and him not cool. I don't like him. We not on speaking terms. He's like, well, I thought Joe was good. I'm like, no, we're not. We're not good. You never talked to me about it. You never talked to me about it. We're not good. And it was hard because that day, you know what I'm saying, it was see, my church back at home, they make it big, they make it was after my birthday, so they had my pictures downstairs, and black churches, when they have different events, you go downstairs in the basement. And if it's pastors, if it's any event, whoever the honorary is, they got a table for him, they got their family sitting down, special treatment. He was not at the table. Wow. He was not at the table. I was like, I do not want him up there. So
now here's my thing. Why wouldn't your pastor just have y'all sit down, come together, and y'all just sit down and see? Because I would think that's what a leader should do, is come in and say, hey, this is your son. Yeah. This is your son. What's your issue with your son? That never happened?
That never happened.
Why?
I had a conversation with my pastor, and he said he'll talk to my dad. And I haven't heard nothing from that day. I just told him what I wanted. And
that's weird. That's weird. Like, why wouldn't you? Yeah. Like, do you value fatherhood? Do you value that and just let things just roll off like nothing that exists? Like, I get mad. I'm getting mad now, but I mean, that I'm just saying how that doesn't exist. That baffles me, because you in the church, a place where people are supposed to be healed,
raised.
There you go. Yeah. And you're singing, as you said previously, and your dad's just shaking your head at him. I mean, she's shaking her head at you.
And I'm the only one that's noticing this. Mind you, everybody is up singing, shouting. And I'm the only one that's looking back at this dude. And it's like, I'm literally singing to the devil himself. Like, I'm really like doing, it's really like spiritual warfare. But what's so crazy, because me and my dad have a better relationship now. What's so crazy was the day came, July 8th, 2018. And it's my trial sermon. I get up to preach. I do my acknowledgments. I acknowledge my mother, my family.
You didn't acknowledge your dad, man?
I didn't. I'm not going to.
Was he there?
He was there. He was the armor bearer. He was there. He was there. He was right at the front row. I didn't say nothing. I acknowledged my grandmother. I did not say nothing to him. So I preach. And I came from John chapter 11. I talked about you have to embrace your experiences, which is so crazy. Mm-hmm. And literally, so I got time to pray. And so I'm at the floor, and you got other ministers on the roster who just nosy. They just want people to be a part. So there was one minister that was just, so I'm surrounded by my family. I got my mother on my right, my auntie on my left. I got my uncle behind me. My cousins is up there. And then like he started praying, and I'm holding them tight because I'm like, yo, I do not want this man up here. So pastor laid his hands on me, and spirit came upon me, and it's just like I went into worship, and they pulling my dad. He coming in, so he around me. And you know, one thing about black churches, they don't let you just worship. They want to hold you and all this other stuff. Like, yo, just let me go. Like, let me have this moment. So at that moment, so I'm in worship, all of us in worship, and then me and him just hug. Mm-hmm. And after that, it just felt like everything broke. Me and him crying, I'm wailing, he's wailing. We're right in front of the entire church. And my pastor using that moment, God is bringing families back together again. He's bringing it back together. You will never be the same. And in my mind, like in that moment, I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just so like, I felt peace, but at the same time, it's like, man, I'm doing this right in front of my church. Some people know what's going on and stuff. But after that, when I got my license, I still was kind of cautious with him, but that first year he was at every sermon that I preached outside. Like he was my armor bearer for every single sermon, and I've learned then to like that's just saying that I learned out in Tennessee. When you eat chicken, you eat the meat, but you spit out the bones. So it's like when I spend time with him, I realize, okay, cool, this is so far I could go. This is so far I could go with him, because like he does have knowledge. And after that, God really showed me my father's spirit. After that, I remember it was like, I think it was Christmas. It was Christmas, and he was in worship, and he was hugging me, and I just felt in my spirit that all he wanted was a relationship with his son. And God made me realize, like, hey, he's a man, and men fall. Men mess up. Now, at the detriment of what he did, but at the same time, I realized, okay, look, I'm in college.
Okay.
I'm a full-time college student. I'm doing good for myself. I'm out here. I'm at one of the premier churches of the country. I'm doing good for myself. I'm singing. And I did that without this man really being present, but God was present. So because of that, it made me look at my father in a way like, you know what? I know that he wants a relationship with his son, so I'm going to be the one that's going to, like, you know, help out. So with that being said, it went to me, you know, hanging out with him. I hung out with him, hung out with his friends, hung out with him for his birthday, and he's a real cool dude when he wants to be cool. He's a Gemini, so, you know, I know you.
Man, don't say. I know you know I'm a Gemini. I told you that without.
But he's
killing
one of
these
them
June people, man.
He's one of them extreme, like, for real. Like he's good when he's good, but when he has attitude, you know what I'm saying, he just has that. So
that's dirty.
So I remember one time, you know, because I'm cool with my brothers. There's only one that I haven't met yet, but I'm cool with all of them. And I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, look, my whole thing is, I want my dad to at least meet all of his kids. I want all of them to at least see him and at least engage with him. And I want my grandmother to at least see all of her grandsons. You know, that's just my thing about it. And I had a conversation with two of my brothers. One I recently just met, I want to say last year.
That's weird, meeting your brother for the first time. That long time away.
Last year, and he was like, man, there's 5 of us, man. If we all grew up together, we didn't need no friends because we had each other. And that really got to me, because it's like, man, I have 4 brothers, and if we grew up together, we wouldn't need no friends, you know. And I was telling them, and I was talking to them, I was like, man, I want y'all to, you know, at least meet Dad. I want y'all to at least have a conversation with him, go out, get some drinks. And they was like, Bill Cray, you the one, honestly, truly, you're the closest one to him. You're not close to him. You the closest one to him. He said he was there at your high school graduation. You know, y'all go to the same church, and you probably have the best for that. I'm like, bro, you say that. Yeah, I may have been the closest one to him, but I also caught probably the most hell. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you've been away and you have this resentment. But me, you know what I'm saying, I see him for face value. But now I'm realizing that, me personally, I had to have a good relationship with my dad, because one day I want to be a father. I want to be a patriarch. Like, I want to have a legacy. You know, my grandmother, she had 13 kids. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna have that many kids in this economy, but I want to be a pillar. You know, I want my name to hold weight. I want years from now, generations from now, people know who I am, and I have a legacy to follow behind. But in order for me to do that, I knew that I needed to find some type of reconciliation, some type of peace for my dad.
So did you ever sit down with your dad and just ask him why? Like, did he ever apologize for some of the things that he did to you? Did y'all just have a sit down and just apologize? And he said, hey, I'm sorry for not being the, you know, a better dad. Did he ever do that?
He did, but he didn't.
Okay, you gotta explain. Did, but he didn't. You gotta explain that one.
He did apologize, but at the same time, you know, he always had a reason to. You know what I'm saying? He always had the typical reason of, like, I think that most dads who aren't in their child's life, not all, but most, the typical reason of, you know, I tried and I tried to get in communications with you. I tried that, you know, but the mothers and and the mother prevented the relationship. And in my mind, like, I'm like, okay, all right, I hear you. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like, I was cognizant then too, because I know my mom, you know, and he don't like my mother. It's still to this day.
That's tough. I mean, I think, you know, for your age to be where you at, it's amazing how you overcome a lot of that, because number one, having a father in the church is very rare. Yeah. Let's just tell the truth. is not a lot of fathers in the church.
Yeah.
So to have a father in the church and this son, you have a son that's trying to do something positive, especially in the city of Chicago. And I'm trying to bash Chicago, but just, trying to do something positive and you're not there.
Yeah.
And you're there, but you're not supporting your son. I just know that had to be hard for you. How do you overcome that to be where you at today, to be the kind of man you are today? How do you hide those old wounds, or do you use it to fuel you to get you where you're going now? How you try to help yourself not go back to that place?
To be honest with you, like I said, like right now, me and my dad have a good relationship, whereas if I call him, if I have a conversation with him, we could talk,
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, like I let the past be the past and realize, it happened, but at the end of the day, it didn't stop me from being great. It didn't stop me from achieving goals. It didn't stop me from graduating college. It didn't stop me from getting a good job or doing the things that I love to do. It's just like, but right now, I want to say one part that it did kind of like affect me is in my spiritual life, because, I feel as if like when you're a minister, there's always a spiritual father relationship that you have. Samuel had Eli, and different people had different things. Elisha had Elijah. Joshua had Moses, and I feel as if like being in ministry is so easy to see that, but I feel as if like me personally, and I say this, I feel as if like I'm like a spiritual bastard in a sense, because I feel as if like, because I don't communicate with my dad like that, and I don't have a relationship, whereas if like I call him, he calls me, we have a reciprocal relationship, it's hard for me to be like, if I don't talk to my dad, why would I call or listen to a man of God? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had mentors and I had a mentor, but I'm not the type that's like, and I told you about this, like I had a mentor, but he scheduled a call every Monday, and it's like every Monday we're gonna talk, every Monday we're gonna do this. But it was like when I missed a Monday, we didn't stop, we didn't talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, it's like, man, if I'm not reaching out to my own father, how can I reach out to you? And so I feel as if like I had a longing for a spiritual dad, but at the same time, it's like I'm not pressed to communicate. Like I'm not about to, I'm at a place right now. The place where I feel as if I still need help with is because I don't feel comfortable, or I feel as if there's no need for me to reach out to a person for guidance, unless if I really need it. Like throughout the week, there's really no reason for me to, because it's like I don't even do that with my own father. I don't even do that with my own dad. So with that, it's very interesting, because like I long for that. And not only that, being anointed comes with a cost, because there's a lot of preachers out here, and I'm I'm speaking generally. When they see that you're anointed, they feed off of that. So they're like, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. You would be a great asset to my ministry, da, da, da. And it's like, okay, cool. So when you see me, when you want me to be in your ministry, are you doing it because
they see the talent?
You know what I'm saying? Do you see the talent, or do you see the fact that, hey, this is a young man who needs guidance and who really needs God? Because honestly, truly, it's like with me, the Bible says gifting comes without repentance. But when you're young, and a minister, I honestly, truly, yes, I am a minister, but I since I've been out here, I kind of like put that on the back burner, because I know that there's a lot of lessons that I still have to learn, and I don't like to carry that title, because the Bible says those who do ministry or who serve and teach, their sins are judged more strictly. So it's just like I know that because of the mantle and how great it is, and knowing that I'm still young and still growing, that I know that like there's more to it, but just trying to find that mentor, because at the end of the day, there's a whole lot of guys who got spiritual fathers, who got people who check up on them and who call them and make sure that they good, and who do all these things. But it's just like me, I'm the one that got to reach out. I'm the one that got to do all that. And it's just like, what, I'm good. I'm just me, my God, and I. But what's so crazy about that, I told my mom, I remember this was last summer, I told my mom, and she broke down in tears. She broke down in tears because she was like, she felt as if she didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah, I think that could happen because of guilt and those things. But did you tell your mom, hey, you didn't?
Yeah, I'm like, look, you did a great a great job, because I feel as if in her mind, her thing is like, I tried to do my job well enough where you didn't need a dad, or you didn't have to desire or want this, but because you want this, I feel as if I didn't do a good job. And I had to remind her, like, no, I'm here because of you. You know, I'm here because of you. I know I can depend on you. I know I can call on you. I know that the lessons that you teach me, I am reminded of it every single day. But there is a part of me that still needs, you know, that I feel as though like that's a necessity. Like, I talked to one of my uncles, my spiritual uncles, about it, because I found myself, even with my pastor back at home, like, me and him don't communicate. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's weird.
Me and him don't communicate.
Maybe if Tori leave, I can really deep into. I ain't gonna bash the church, man. I'm not gonna do that.
You know, but
that's just weird, man. You should have a relationship.
Yeah, and you would think that, because like I was, mind you, like I was in children's church. I was there when he was the youth pastor, when there was nobody there. So, and usually when you're a minister and you're preaching at like another church, our protocol is you got to call your home pastor, the pastor that licensed you, or the pastor that you claim or whatever have you, to be your covering, and ask him for permission to preach.
Yeah.
But at that time, I felt like, you know what, I don't even really feel like calling him, because it's like, yo, like, me and him don't got a good relationship neither. Like, you know, he out there, I'm out here, and it's just like, I don't even, none of that. Like, so, and I'm not even trying to put him on the spot, because I respect him. No, for real, I'm being honest with you. Yeah. I ain't trying to put him on the spot, and I respect him. But there was one time he came to Nashville, Tennessee, a week after I was in Chicago. He came to Nashville, Tennessee, and while I was in Chicago, he didn't say nothing. He didn't say, hey, I'm going to be in your city, because one of his pastors was launching the church out here. And while he was out here, it wasn't like, hey, I want to come to your school, I want to see your dorm, do you need anything? None of that. He just came, I saw him, and then he left. And it was just like, man.
Let me ask you this then, as we wrap this up, because your story is excellent, because and I didn't want to really bash the church, but I think the church should do more to protect our kids. That's just me.
Yeah.
Especially kids growing up fatherless. And if you know mess is going on, you need to address that, because like one of the other guys said, that stuff affects you long term.
Yeah.
It affects you long term. It's things in the church that happened to me that still has an effect on me now. My thinking is a little bit different. The way I see things is a bit different. Because I would believe this one thing, and then when you see reality and other things, it kind of throw me off. So it's not me bashing the church. It's just I think if your pastor had known that your dad, he should have fixed that. You should have fixed that, because that's somebody's child.
Yeah,
that's gonna grow up, and you have to be a dad one day. Yeah. And then you don't want to repeat that same cycle. So, man, thanks for stopping by, man. And we're going to do a part 2.
Most definitely. Can I one more thought?
Yeah, go ahead.
One thought.
Go ahead.
And I hear you saying about the church, but I think the problem that we realize is that the church is a hospital. Okay. And it's full of sick people. The problem is we look at the church as if it's this perfect building built for perfect people. It's people who's trying just as hard. I feel as if like when and COVID showed us that the church is just not the people in the building, but it's within you. And I think what can help men, being in the church is the fact that you got to realize it's a building at the end of the day, and everybody in there,
that's true,
is falling short of glory every single day.
That's true,
and it's just like, that's why I don't necessarily hold it to them. Because I realized, okay, cool, like, from a pastor's standpoint, yeah, but at the same time, you're human, so you probably think that's not your place. You probably think that that's not what you want to do. So I've gotten to the place now, is just like, you know what, people are not perfect, and the church is full of not perfect people. Everybody's progressing. No one is perfect. So yeah, that's how I look at church now. Everybody is trying to get the same Jesus.
Man, I want to go deeper in this one, man, because I got some questions to ask you, but I think for me is that you're totally right. You're totally right. I guess I saw church as a kid.
Yeah,
is where you're supposed to do right. You're supposed to do this because, number one, you can affect a child long term. You really can affect children long term if you don't do it the right way. So that's kind of how I looked at church, was a place you're supposed to do it the right way. But I know we live in a different society. Your story really brought it out to me a whole lot. And I just want to thank you for taking time out your day, man, to share your story. I know sometimes talking about it brings up old memories. You sometimes want to kind of hide and move on. But I think your story can resonate with people who go through these things.
Yeah.
And shed more of a light. Let me ask one more thing. Why did you say not having a father piece, you had a hole in your heart and you had to be filled with something? That was a good point you mentioned me, and I'm gonna wrap it up.
The reason why I say that is because it's like you feel lost. You know what I'm saying? When you a lot of times, a lot of these kids, when you're raised by a single mother, you have questions.
Okay.
You probably know your mama's side, but you don't know your daddy's side. And the reason why, because like I said, I have 4 other brothers, and all of us are different.
Okay.
Every single one of us different. The whole, to me, was church.
Okay.
Being raised rather in the church, having a relationship with God. So that what formed me and helped me out. One of my brothers, he's big into sports. So sports and being an athlete and in football and running track, that was his thing. One of my brothers, he's a producer. So music was his niche. And one of my brothers, he was, gang affiliated. So it's just like, so all of us are different. But the reason why I say it's a whole right there is because at the end of the day, you need to be guided. You need something that's going to make you sturdy. And I applaud the mothers, I applaud them, because at the end of the day, they do the job when a whole lot of guys don't.
Yeah.
A whole lot of guys don't. But at the same time, though, they can't do everything.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They cannot do everything. Prime example, there was a friend of mine, and I don't know how long we got, but there was a friend of mine back in high school. His mother had a strong hold on him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about like he couldn't go nowhere. He couldn't do nothing. She was just his mom. Didn't know nothing about his dad. Didn't know nothing about him. Didn't know nothing. So he came to college. He was my roommate. And being in college, he went to all boys school, all that. His mother filtered his vision of everything. He came to college and didn't know what to do with himself. He didn't, his social skills were not there. He let certain things get to him. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He and it's just like, man, like, it's just like a lot of people, when they don't have that foundation, when they don't have nothing that drives them, they're lost. And he went back home, and he went back to his mom's crib, and she told him, like, look, it's either you gonna be in school or you gonna work, but you can't do both. Mm-hmm. So he chose to work.
And not finish school. Because of the foundation.
Because of the foundation that he was in.
Man, you got a lot of wisdom for your age, man. And I really appreciate you just taking time to stop by, man. We definitely going to do a part 2. Yeah. Because of the church. Maybe bring a guest.
Most definitely. I really want to do that because, I could really go for it, but I don't know. What time is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, cool. It's okay. But I really want to say just one thing. Thing. I promise you I'm done. Just for the church, and this probably could segue to the part 2. Okay. When you look and read the Bible says he came for the sick. Mm-hmm. When God used everybody that he used was not perfect. Even when Jesus came, when you look at his 12 disciples, he didn't use the Pharisees. Mm-hmm. He didn't use the church leaders, the religious leaders. No, he used, young teenagers to be his followers. Mm-hmm. And that segue into, okay, cool. What is the Bible's foundation of the church, and what has people turned the church into? Yeah.
That's what I like to talk about. I can get started. I can get fired up on that. I may get divorced afterwards, but I will go off about it. To be continued. Yeah. So, man, thanks for stopping by, man. We definitely do this again. The story was very somber, but it was very necessary to open up a light for young men, especially going up in the church, to have more of a positive role model. So, thanks again for listening to another episode of Stronger Than My Father podcast. This show was powered by your donations, a subscription, and if you enjoyed what you like, we love a 5-star rating. You can see this episode and more episodes on StrongerThanMyFather.org. Until we meet again, God bless you. Stay safe.
Yes, sir.